And you don't need to get anyone's permission to do this. This is acceptable in the state of Michigan. Someone comes into your house, they're brandishing a firearm or wielding a knife, and you have a firearm, you can blow them away. As long as like their back is not turned. But if they're coming towards you and they're a threat, you have the legal right. The second is, if the head of state calls for a jihad because the nation is under similar type of danger of being invaded, or if a leader of the Muslims is trying to drive invaders off of the land of the people whose homes and property are being illegally occupied. This has to be called by a leader, like by the head of the Muslims, like a head of the state. It just can't be any one individual person say, oh yeah, they took my cousin's land, so I'm gonna go like the Hatfields and McCoys and go get a shotgun. This is not acceptable. This is what falls under vigilantism. And vigilantism is not permitted in Islam. The Quran clearly says also, do not kill a person or kill a soul which God has made sacred except with what is right and just. With what is right and just. Also what falls under with what is right and just, and this goes into how vigilantism is not permissible in Islam. Let's say someone, according to Islam, commits a capital offense. They commit murder. A person just can't go and do a revenge killing or a so-called honor killing because they think that someone killed their family member. That person has to go in front of a court, they have to go in front of a judge, and the evidence has to be presented in court, and if that person is then found guilty of committing capital murder, then the judge can sentence the person to the death penalty. But it just can't be a vigilante thing that you see someone kill a family member, so then you want to go back and kill them. No, it doesn't work that way. That person has to go in front of a judge and has to be given due process. Killing of civilians is during times of defense is clearly prohibited according to the Quran. God says in the Quran, and fight in the way of God with those who fight with you, but do not exceed the limits. Surely God does not love those who exceed the limits. This is interpreted as only those who pick up arms against you and are fighting at the time. Immediately when they wave the white flag, or if they're surrendering, or if they turn their back and retreat, it is not permissible to fight and to kill people in this circumstance. It is not permissible to kill children. It is not permissible to kill the elderly. It is not permissible to kill women, even on the battlefield, unless that woman, and we have modern day, things have changed a lot from 1,400 years ago. Back in the day, women weren't wearing armor and wielding swords and riding on horses and camels and shooting people with bow and arrows. But these days, women fly Black Hawk helicopters and carry M16s. In those cases, the woman would then be fair game if it was in a wartime conflict. But under normal circumstances, this would not be, well, under traditional circumstances, I would say, this would not be permissible to fight or to harm women. This is strictly prohibited. Prophet Muhammad was so strict even on his rules of engagement that he ordered the Muslims that it was forbidden to do scorched earth policy, like you want to go through a village and burn crops, for instance, or cut down the people's trees, or to slaughter their livestock, to basically make them, to humiliate them or to make them starve. This is also forbidden according to the teachings of Islam. This is also, by the way, why Islamic scholars, including Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran, have given fatwa or have given religious opinions stating that nuclear weapons are un-Islamic and that nuclear weapons are the weapons of the devil. The weapons of, we say, shaitan means Satan. Shaitan, Satan. That nuclear weapons are the devices of the devil. Why? Because anytime a nuclear weapon is dropped, it pollutes the environment, it kills animals, and it kills innocent civilians. And even these depleted nuclear weapons like we have, where we have these depleted uranium missiles that shoot, and they destroy things, destroy a building, but then the depleted uranium goes into the soil and contaminates the people's water or crops for the next 1,000 years. This is prohibited in Islam. Even if Pakistan has nuclear weapons, this is prohibited according to the Islamic scholars. Also, torture is prohibited in Islam. By the way, let me just backtrack, well, I'll get to this point in a moment. Let me continue. Torture is also prohibited in the Islamic religion, the Islamic faith. Waterboarding is impermissible, for instance. I will give you a story that took place in the time of the second, what we call Khalifa, or the temporal successor to the Prophet Muhammad after he passed. There was the first Caliph or Khalifa named Abu Bakr, and the second was called Umar ibn al-Khattab. Under the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, there was a circumstance in an area called Sham. It's modern day Syria. It's an area like modern day Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, this area. It's called Sham. And at the time, there used to be tax collectors. This is during the time of Umar. Islam had spread to this area. Prior to this time, Christianity was the majority religion in the area of Sham. So Muslims paid one type of tax to the government, and then there's another tax that was given to people of other faiths. They have two different names. So when the tax collectors were coming through the area of Syria collecting taxes, there were a group of Christians who were behind on their taxes. So what the tax collector did was took off some of their clothes and made them stand outside in the hot sun for a long period of time while the sun was being on them. And I've been in this area of the world. It can get hot. I don't know what time of the season it was. It can get hot in Palestine, believe me. It can get hot in this area. So they're burning up and they're hot. And then one of the companions, one of the people who was a friend of Prophet Muhammad who followed him and heard his teaching, walked past these tax collectors, and he said, "What are you doing?" So then the tax collector said, "Well, these people, these Christians, they haven't paid their taxes, so we're going to make them sit out here in this hot sun. We're not going to let them go until some of their people come back and bring them the money that we're supposed to get from them." And then this man says, "Oh, wallahi," I mean, I swear by God, that I heard the Prophet Muhammad say, "Whoever tortures people, certainly God will punish him." After he said this, he then told the tax collectors to let the Christians go, and that basically give them an installment plan where they can pay their taxes, give them some leeway for them to pay their taxes. So these Christians were let go. Muslims, the book by this reference is Kitab al-Kharaj by Imam Abu Yusuf, is where the references of this story is at. So torture is not prohibited, and is something that is frowned upon, to the point that whoever tortures a person can face detriment or face punishment in the hereafter for torturing human beings, irrespective of what their religion is. Now, suicide, including suicide bombing, suicide